I actually laughed when they called my dad just a janitor. Yeah, out loud, not a polite chuckle, not an awkward smile, a real laugh. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The kind that lingers just a second too long. The kind you can't take back. And if you had told me that less than 5 minutes later, a 4-star general would walk into that same room, look straight at me, and say my name like he already knew exactly who I was, I would have laughed at that too. Let me rewind. My name is Ruby Walker. I'm 27, and at the time, I worked as a junior operations analyst for a private defense contractor just outside D.C., the kind of place where everything feels important, because it is. Security badges, restricted floors, whispered conversations that stop the second you walk by. It's not the kind of job you mess up, and it's definitely not the kind of place where people respect you unless your title demands it. So people compensate. They exaggerate connections, drop names, pretend they belong at levels they haven't earned yet. And me? I didn't lie. But I didn't correct people either. Because there was one detail about my life that never seemed to fit the image I was trying to build. My dad, Daniel Walker. 58 years old, quiet, reserved, and for the past 11 years, a janitor in the same building where I worked. Now let me ask you something. If you were trying to prove yourself in a place where everyone's competing for status, would you go out of your way to tell people your dad cleans the floors? Exactly. So I didn't. When people made assumptions about my background, my connections, I just let it happen. It was easier that way. But here's the thing. There were always little inconsistencies. Things that didn't quite add up, like how my dad worked odd hours, sometimes overnight, sometimes during high-security operations. Or how certain people, important people, would nod at him like they recognized him. Not politely, respectfully. And the strangest part? He never corrected anyone. Not once. Not when someone called him maintenance. Not when someone asked him to clean up a spill like he was invisible. Not even when they talked about him like he wasn't standing right there. He just let it happen. The morning everything changed started like any other high-stress day. Except this time, as there was a rumor spreading through the entire building. A 4-star general was coming, not for a casual visit, for an inspection. And in our line of work, that meant one thing. Everything was about to be judged. Careers, projects, people, including me. By noon, the tension was everywhere. My team was scrambling, double-checking reports, rehearsing presentations, trying to look like we had everything under control. That's when the conversation shifted. Casual, careless. Jason leaned back in his chair and smirked. Guess we don't need to worry about the janitor overhearing anything classified. Lila laughed. And before I could stop myself, I laughed too. Yeah, I added, shaking my head. He's just been around forever. Just. That word hung in the air longer than I realized. Because at that exact moment, the door opened. And everything changed. The room went quiet. Not gradually, instantly, like the air had been pulled out. A man stepped inside, tall, composed, decorated in a way that didn't need explanation. 4 stars. Authority you could feel without him saying a word. He didn't look at the executives first, didn't acknowledge the team leads, didn't even glance at the presentation screen. No. He scanned the room once, slowly, and then he locked eyes with me. Not past me, not through me, at me, like he knew me, like he had been expecting me. And then, without hesitation, he said, "Ruby Walker, tell me something. How does a 4-star general know your name when you've never even seen him before?" Why was he looking at me like that? That was the only thought in my head. Not who is he, not what's happening. Just that one question. Why me? Because this wasn't normal. A 4-star general doesn't walk into a room full of executives, analysts, and department heads and single out the most junior person there. That doesn't happen. And yet, it just did. Let me take you back a few hours earlier because this didn't start in that conference room. It started in the hallway. Same building, same fluorescent lighting, same low hum of people trying to look important. I was walking with Jason Kim, 34, overly confident, the kind of guy who always had something to say, and Lila Hernandez, 29, sharp, observant, and usually the smartest person in the room. We were heading toward our morning prep meeting, coffee in hand, nerves already building. "Today's gonna be brutal," Jason muttered. "You mess up in front of someone like that? You're done." Lila nodded. I heard they're reviewing internal access protocols too, not just the projects. That made me pause. Access protocols meant security. Security meant clearance levels, and in this building, that mattered more than anything. We turned the corner, and that's when I saw him. My dad, Daniel Walker, same as always, gray uniform, cleaning cart, head slightly down like he preferred not to be noticed. Except, people did notice him, just not in the way you'd expect. A senior security officer walked past, someone I'd only ever seen interacting with upper management. He slowed down, looked at my dad, and gave him a small nod, not dismissive, not casual, respectful. My dad returned it, just as subtle, then kept moving. "See?" Jason said under his breath, following my gaze. "Guy's been here forever. Probably knows all the shortcuts." Lila smirked. "Yeah, but let's be real. He's still just cleaning up after everyone." I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger, not exactly, more like discomfort, but I brushed it off. "Yeah," I said lightly. "Yeah," I said lightly. "He's just been around forever." The words came out easily, too easily, and that should have bothered me more than it did. We kept walking, but I couldn't help glancing back. My dad had already moved on, pushing his cart toward a side corridor, the kind that required clearance most employees didn't have. Here's the thing. I'd tried going down that hallway once, badge denied, access restricted, but my dad? He didn't even slow down. No swipe, no hesitation, no one stopping him. He just walked in. "Wait," I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. Lila noticed. "What?" I hesitated, then shook my head. "Nothing. Just thought I left something." But I hadn't. What I had noticed was a pattern, something I'd been ignoring for years, because it wasn't just that one hallway, it was everything. The odd hours, the way certain people spoke to him, the way others avoided speaking to him at all. And the biggest question of all, why didn't he wear a badge? Everyone in that building wore one, you had to, except him. "Ruby?" Jason snapped his fingers in front of me. "You good?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just tired." That was easier than explaining something I didn't even understand myself. The rest of the morning blurred into preparation. Slides, data, talking points. Everyone was tense, focused, trying to be perfect. Because when someone like a 4-star general shows up, it's not just about reviewing work, it's about deciding who matters. By the time we got to the conference room, the pressure was suffocating. Executives lined one side of the table, our team took the other, laptops open, documents ready, and right before things officially started, there he was again. My dad. In the back of the room. Quiet, unnoticed, or at least, that's what everyone assumed. Jason leaned toward me, lowering his voice. "You think they even realize he's here?" I glanced back. My dad wasn't cleaning anything. He was just standing there, watching. "Probably not," I said. Lila chuckled softly. "Imagine being invisible like that. No pressure, no expectations." Jason smirked. "Yeah, must be nice. No one cares what the janitor thinks." And that's when it happened. That moment. The one I wish I could rewind. I laughed. Again. Not loudly this time, but enough. Enough to agree. Enough to confirm what everyone else believed. "Yeah," I said, shaking my head. "A general doesn't ignore executives unless someone else in the room matters more." That thought hit me a second too late, because by the time it fully formed, General Marcus Hale was already moving. The room stayed frozen. No one sat down, No one spoke. Even the senior directors, people who usually controlled every conversation, just stood there, waiting, watching, trying to understand what was happening, because this wasn't protocol, this wasn't normal, and it definitely wasn't expected. General Hale didn't look at the presentation screens, didn't ask for introductions, didn't acknowledge the executives who had been preparing for this moment all week. He just kept walking, slow, measured, intentional, straight past them, straight past me, and toward the back of the room. My stomach dropped, because I already knew who was standing back there. Even before I turned around, I knew. My dad, still in his gray uniform, still holding that same cleaning cart like nothing in the world had changed, like a 4-star general wasn't walking directly toward him, like this was just another normal day. "Why is he going over there?" Jason whispered under his breath. No one answered, because no one had an answer. The distance between them closed. 10 steps, 5 steps, 2, then General Hale stopped, right in front of Daniel Walker, and something shifted. It was subtle. So subtle you could have missed it if you weren't paying attention. But I saw it. My dad straightened, not dramatically, not like a soldier snapping to attention, but enough. Enough that suddenly he didn't look like a janitor anymore. He looked composed, grounded, like he belonged exactly where he was. Then the general spoke, clear, calm, unmistakable. "Daniel Walker." Not "sir," not "hey," not even hesitation. His full name, like it carried weight. A ripple went through the room. I heard someone behind me whisper, "Wait, what?" Jason's voice came next, quieter now. "Why does he know his name?" My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else, because this didn't make sense. None of it did. "I didn't expect to see you here," General Hale continued. There was something in his tone, not surprise, not confusion, recognition. My dad exhaled slowly, then answered, "Life takes different turns." Simple, measured, like they were continuing a conversation that had never really ended. One of the executives finally stepped forward, trying to regain control. "General Hale, if we could begin the—" Hale raised his hand, didn't even look at him, just raised his hand, and the man stopped talking immediately. Silence again. He wasn't in charge anymore, not in this moment. Then Hale's attention shifted, slightly, not away from my dad, but outward, toward all of us. "For those who aren't aware," he said, voice steady, carrying across the room, "Daniel Walker isn't just part of your maintenance staff." The word just hung there, heavy, intentional. I felt my chest tighten. Every word I'd said earlier, every laugh, every time I let people believe that was all he was, it all came rushing back at once. Hale took a step back, just enough to look at my dad properly, not as an employee, not as background, but as an equal. Jason leaned closer to me, whispering fast now, "Ruby, what's going on?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I was starting to realize something. I didn't know my dad, not really. And then, the moment shifted again. General Hale turned his head, slowly, deliberately, until his eyes landed on me. It felt different this time. He wasn't just noticing me, he was confirming something. "You," he said. Just that. One word. But it landed like a spotlight. The entire room followed his gaze. Every single person turned to look at me. Jason, Lila, the executives, all of them. My throat went dry. I hadn't moved, but suddenly I felt exposed, like I'd just been pulled into something I didn't understand. Hale studied me for a second, then asked, "You're his daughter, aren't you?" The room didn't just go quiet. It collapsed into silence, because now, it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about me, and I hadn't even answered yet. "Say something." That's what my brain kept repeating, over and over. Say something, anything, because right now every single person in that room was staring at me, waiting to hear how I would respond, waiting to see if I would confirm it or deny it. My mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Because what was I supposed to say? Yes, that's my dad. The janitor you were all just laughing about? Or, yes, that's my dad. And apparently, I have no idea who he actually is. I swallowed hard. Yes, I finally managed, barely above a whisper. But it was enough. The shift in the room was immediate, not loud, not chaotic, just heavy, like the atmosphere itself had changed. Jason leaned back slowly, his expression tightening. Lila's eyes flicked between me and my dad, piecing everything together in real time. And the executives? They looked uncomfortable, like they had just realized they'd misunderstood something important. General Hale nodded once, not surprised, just confirmed. Then he said something that made my chest tighten even more. That makes sense. What did that mean? What exactly made sense? Before I could even process it, Hale turned back to my dad, and the tone shifted again. Less public now, more personal. I wasn't sure if you'd stayed completely off-grid, Hale said, or if you were still keeping an eye on things. Off-grid? Keeping an eye on things? What did that even mean? My dad gave a small, almost tired smile. The second one, he said. There it was again. That calm, that control, like this entire situation wasn't unusual at all. Hale nodded like he expected that answer. Then, finally, he turned back to the room. This time, his expression hardened slightly. I think there's been a misunderstanding, he said. Understatement of the century. He took a step forward, now addressing everyone. Daniel Walker served in multiple classified operations over a 25-year career, joint command structures, intelligence coordination, strategic logistics at levels most of you won't ever have clearance to access. Each word landed heavier than the last. No one moved, no one spoke. He wasn't just involved, Hale continued. He was critical. I felt my pulse in my ears, because this wasn't just surprising anymore. This was something else, something bigger. Hale's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it now. Some of the systems you rely on today exist because of decisions he made under pressure. A pause, then. Decisions that saved lives. I looked at my dad, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw it. Not the uniform, not the cart, him, the way he stood, the way he listened, the way he said nothing, but somehow didn't need to. This wasn't new. This wasn't a reveal for him. This was just the truth catching up. Behind me, someone shifted in their chair. Uncomfortable. Because now every joke, every comment, every dismissive glance, it all meant something different. Jason leaned in again, but his voice had changed. Lower, tighter. Ruby, why didn't you say anything? That question hit harder than anything else so far, because I didn't have an answer, not a real one. Why didn't I ask him more? Why didn't I notice? Why did I just accept what was easy? Before I could even think about responding, General Hale spoke again, this time directly to me. Ruby! I straightened instinctively. He held my gaze, not harsh, not angry, just direct. Then he asked, You really think he's just a janitor? And just like that, everything I'd said earlier came crashing back. Every word, every laugh, every assumption. The room waited. Again. But this time, it felt different. He wasn't asking for information. He was asking for truth. And I didn't know what to say, because whatever answer I gave would define everything that came next. Behind him, my dad didn't interrupt, didn't step in. He just watched, waiting. No, I don't. That's what I said. Finally. Not loud, not dramatic, but clear. And for the first time since this all started, I meant every word. The silence that followed felt different from before, less tense, less uncertain, like something had finally settled into place. General Hale held my gaze for a moment longer, then gave a small nod. Not approval, not judgment, just acknowledgement. Then he turned back to my dad. And just like that, the focus shifted away from me. But the impact didn't. Not even close. Still keeping things quiet. I see, Hale said. My dad gave a slight shrug. Easier that way. And just like that, everything started to make sense. Not all at once, but enough. Logical payoff, what actually happened. My dad hadn't been just a janitor. Not even close. After 25 years in high-level military operations, roles that involved intelligence coordination, strategic logistics, and classified missions he would never fully be allowed to talk about, he had retired. But not in the way most people do. He didn't step away completely. He transitioned into something quieter, something hidden. The janitor job? That wasn't a fallback. It was a choice, a deliberate one, because it gave him something no official position could. Access without attention, freedom without scrutiny, the ability to observe, move, and exist inside sensitive environments, without anyone thinking twice. And the building I worked in? It wasn't just any contractor facility. It was tied, directly and indirectly, to the same networks he had spent decades operating within. He hadn't been cleaning floors. He had been watching, monitoring, staying close to systems and people that still mattered. And the reason he never corrected anyone? Because the moment people stop noticing you is the moment you see everything. Emotional payoff. Ruby's realization. I felt it all at once. The embarrassment, the disbelief, but more than anything, the weight of how wrong I'd been, not just about what he did, but about who he was. All those years. And I never asked. Not really. I accepted the simplest version of him because it was easier to understand, easier to explain, easier to fit into my world. And standing there in that room, I realized something that hit harder than anything else. Everyone else underestimated him because they didn't know him. I underestimated him, even though I did. I looked at him again. And this time there was no confusion, just clarity, consequence payoff. What happened after the meeting didn't go the way anyone expected. It wasn't about our reports anymore. It wasn't about performance metrics. It became something else entirely, a recalibration. The executives shifted immediately. The tone toward my dad changed, subtle but undeniable. Respect replaced indifference. Carefulness replaced dismissal. Jason? He didn't make another joke for the rest of the day. Lila barely spoke at all, and the looks they gave me, they weren't mocking anymore. Oh, they were cautious. Word spread fast, not publicly, not officially, but in a place like that, nothing stays quiet for long. Over the next week, things changed. Not dramatically, but enough. People treated me differently. Not because I had done anything, but because of who I was connected to. And honestly, I didn't like it, because now I understood something I hadn't before. Respect based on assumption is just as empty as disrespect based on it. At home, I finally asked him, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" He didn't hesitate. "You never asked." No anger, no regret, just truth. And he was right. Final resolution moment. A few days later, I saw him again. Same hallway, same uniform, same cart. Nothing about him had changed, but everything about how I saw him had. As I walked past a group of coworkers, I overheard it again. "Yeah, he's just the janitor." I stopped, just for a second. Then I turned slightly, not making a scene, not raising my voice, and I said, "No, he's not." That was it. No explanation, no story, no need, because now I understood something I didn't before. The truth doesn't always need to be announced. Sometimes it just needs to be known.